So we are going to start on set up the microphone. Alo. Ok. Alo, alo, alo. Okay. For the blood, prior to the cognitive revolution, humans of all species lived exclusively on the Afro-Asian landmass. They had settled a few islands by swimming short stretches of water or crossing them on improvised rafts. Flores, for example, was colonized as far back as 850,000 years ago, yet they were unable to venture into the open sea, and none reached America, Australia, or remote islands such as Madagascar, New Zealand, and Hawaii. The sea barrier prevented not just humans but also many other Afro-Asian animals and plants from reaching this outer world. As a result, the organisms of distant lands like Australia and Madagascar evolved in isolation for millions upon millions of years, taking on shape and nature very different from those of their distant Afro-Asian relatives. Planet Earth was separated into several distinct ecosystems, each made up of a unique assembly of animals and plants. Homo sapiens was about to put an end to this biological exuberance. Following the cognitive revolution, sapiens acquired the technology, the organizational skills, and perhaps even the vision necessary to break out of Afro-Asia and settle the outer world. Their first achievement was the colonization of Australia some 45,000 years ago. Experts are hard-pressed to explain this feat. In order to reach Australia, humans had to cross a number of sea channels, some more than 100 kilometers wide, and upon arrival they had to adapt nearly overnight to a completely new ecosystem. The most reasonable theory suggests that about 45,000 years ago, the sapiens living in the Indonesian archipelago translate So this is translated: a group of islands separated from each other by only narrow straits, developed the first seafaring societies. They learned how to go and maneuver. No, it's not French, it's US. Ocean-going vessels became long-distance fishermen, traders, and explorers. So, note it would be modified some kind of superior code. This is what had brought about an unprecedented transformation in human capability and life size. Every other mammal that learned to use sea cows, dolphins, had to evolve for ants. Dictionary. This gap and trick for eo mùa Hà Đông. What does it mean? What is the meaning? A parallel has so long cannot be measured. Okay. For so long. The sapien in Indonesia descendants of apes that their tribes, their children, ape who we found African savanna, came Pacific seafarers without growing flipper and without having to wait for their noses to migrate to the top of their head, as waves did. Instead, they built boats and learned how to steer them, and this skill enabled them to reach and settle Australia. True archaeologists have yet to unearth rafts. Archaeologists have yet to unearth rafts or of fishing village that date back as far as 45,000 years ago. They would be difficult to discover because rising sea level has buried the ancient Indonesian shoreline beneath 100-meter erosion. Nevertheless, there is strong circumstantial evidence to support this theory, especially the fact that in the thousands of years following the settlement of Australia, sapiens colonized a large number of small and isolated islands to its north. Some, such as Buka and Minas, were separated from the closer land by 200 kilometers. However, whether it's hard to believe that anyone could have reached and colonized Minas without sophisticated vessel and sailing skills. Vessel. The word vessel. Larboard or a ship, and it's checking the image for vessel. For container, a lot of container, logistic. Vessel. Very big boat. As mentioned earlier, there is also firm evidence for regular sea trade between some of these islands, such as New Ireland and New Britain. Christopher Wren and consider the prehistoric origin of modern sexuality. New York, the back, is here. The reference. Now back to the big that I am looking at. The flag, I'm here. Hello. Yeah. No, never click it again. The journey of the first humans to Australia is one of the most important events in history. Well, at least as important as Columbus' journey to America or the Apollo 11 expedition to the moon. It was the first time any human had managed to leave the Afro-Asian ecological system. Indeed, the first time any large terrestrial mammal had managed to cross from Afro-Asia to Australia. Of even greater importance was what the human pioneers did in this new world. The moment the first hunter-gatherer set foot on an Australian beach was the moment that Homo sapiens climbed to the top rung in the food chain on a particular landmass, and thereafter became the deadliest species in the annals of planet Earth. How scary. Up until then, humans had displayed some innovative adaptations and behaviors, but their effect on their environment had been negligible. Important. No, important. Negligible. no important. It's no much important. They had demonstrated remarkable success in moving into and adjusting to various habitats, but they did so without drastically changing the habitats. The settlers of Australia, or more accurately, its conquerors, didn't just adapt, they transformed the Australian ecosystem beyond recognition. First human footprint on a sandy Australian beach was immediately washed away by the waves. Yet the invader advanced inland. They left behind a different footprint, one that would never be expunged. As they pushed on, they encountered a strange universe of unknown creatures that included a 200-kilogram 2-meter kangaroo and a marsupial lion. So the lion is very big, or something like that. I don't know. Yeah. And now is the word marsupial. Marsupial, a type member from Australia, was sought for centuries but not completely developed when it's born, and it's carried around in a pouch, a body-like part of a pocket on the mother's body, whereas it fed and taken until completely developed. Koala possum and kangaroo possum. I don't know that anymore. Mickey Mouse. Lion. Lion. Falcon. It is an extinct genus of carnivorous marsupials living in Australia from the late Paleolithic to the so it's long ago. Modern species. Yeah. So a massive as a modern tiger that was the continent's largest predator. Koalas far too big to be cuddy and pure Boston, the tree and flightless bird twice the size of ostrich sprinted on the plains. Dragons like lizards and snakes 5 meters long slithers through the undergrowth. The giant diprotodon that's the marsupial again, and it was died long ago. A 2.5-ton wombat. Wombat 2.5 ton. Wombats roam the forest, except for the birds and reptiles. Reptile. Bò sát. Reptile. Visit. All these animals were marsupials. Like kangaroos, they have brought to tiny hapless fetus like young, which they then nurture with milk in their abdominal pouches. Marsupial never were almost unknown in Africa and Asia, but in Australia they reigned supreme. Within a few thousand years, virtually all of the giants vanished. Of the 24 Australian animal species weighed 50 kilograms or more, 23 became extinct. A large number of smaller species also disappeared. Food chains throughout the entire Australian ecosystem were broken and rearranged. It was the most important transformation of the Australian ecosystem for millions of years. Was it all the fault of Homo sapiens? I don't know. Guilty as charged. Translate. It was the most important transformation of the Australian ecosystem for millions of years. Was it all the fault of Homo sapiens? Guilty as charged. Guilty as charged.
Guilty. 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 Guilty.
Guilty. Guilty as charged. Some scholars try to exonerate. Some scholars try to exonerate our species, placing the blame on the vagaries of the climate. The vagaries. The change of the climate. So quick. The usual scapegoat in such cases. The usual scapegoat in such cases. Yet it's hard to believe that Homo sapiens were completely innocent. There are 3 pieces of evidence that weaken the climate alibi. and implicate our ancestor in the existence of the Australian megafauna. Megafauna. Or how to spell this word?
Megafauna.
Firstly, even though Australia's climate changed some 45,000 years ago, it wasn't a very remarkable upheaval. It's hard to see how the new weather patterns alone could have caused such a massive extinction. It's common today to explain anything and everything as a result of climate change, but the truth is that the Earth's climate never rests. It is in constant flux. Every event in history occurred against the background of some climate change. In particular, our planet has experienced numerous cycles of cooling and warming. During the last million years, there has been an ice age on average every 800,000 years. The last one ran from about 75,000 to 15,000 years ago. Not usually served for an ice age. It has twin peaks. The first about 70,000 years ago, and the second at about 20,000 years ago. The giant diplotodont. Something is so big. Anymore? Here we go again. More than 1.5 million geographical successfully weathered at least 10 previous ice age. It also survived the first peak of the last ice age around 70,000 years ago. Why then did it disappear 45,000 years ago? Of course, its Diplodocus had been the only large animal to disappear at this time. It might have been just a fluke. Lucky. A fortune, so it's more. Something that happens, usually something good, that is the result of chance instead of skill or planning. Okay? An unusual chance means something produced by this. But more than 90% of Australia's megafauna disappear along with the diprotodont. The evidence is circumstantial, but it's hard to imagine that sapiens, just by coincidence, arrived in Australia at the precise point that all these animals were dropping dead of the chills. Secondly, when the climate change caused mass extinctions, sea creatures are usually hit as hard as land dwellers. Yes, there is no evidence of any significant disappearance of oceanic fauna 45,000 years ago. Human involvement can easily explain why the wave of extinction all obliterated. Clear. The terrestrial ground megafauna of Australia was sparing that of the nearby ocean, despite its burgeoning
burgeoning, burgeoning,
that is undergoing development. So I think so. Burgeoning navigational abilities. Homo sapiens was still overwhelming a terrestrial menace. A threat menace, something that is likely to cause harm. Thirdly, mass extinction are keen. Why there's so much new watch? Are keen having of the same quality. Same as alike, same as archetypal, typical of an original thing from which others are copied. Typical,
archetypal,
archetypal, typical, of an original thing from which others are copied. So this original typical decimation occur again and again in the ensuing millennia. whenever people settle another part of the outer world. In these cases, a civilian guide, irrefutable, cannot refuse. For example, the megafauna of New Zealand, which has weathered of the Earth's climate change of see 45,000 years ago without a scratch, suffered devastating blows immediately after the first humans set foot on the islands. The Maoris, New Zealand. If you have some bad things were island in the Arctic Ocean, 200 kilometers north of the Siberian coast. Mammoth has flourished for millions of years over most of the northern hemisphere, but as Homo sapiens spread first over Eurasia and then over North America, the mammoth retreated. 10,000 years ago, there were not a single mammoth to be found in the world except on a few remote Arctic islands. Most conspicuously I'm missing the U. Conspicuously. Conspicuously, yeah, correct. Conspicuously is the way that conspicuous, noticeable. Easy. Clearly. Conspicuously. Easy. This. The mammoth continued to prosper for a few more millennia, then suddenly disappeared about 4,000 years ago, just when the first human reached the island. While the Australia extinction an isolated event, we could grant human the benefit of the doubt, but the historical record makes Homo sapiens look like an ecological serial killer. Now I feel like in this chapter, okay, so I will speed run. All the settlers of Australia had their disposal was Stone Age technology. How could they cause an ecological disaster? There are three explanations that match quite nicely. Large animals, the primary victim of the Australian extinction, breed slowly, pregnancy is long, offspring per pregnancy are few, and there are long breaks between pregnancy. Consequently, if humans cut down even one dependent every few months, it would be enough for cause dependent death to outnumber births. Within a few thousand years last, some dependent would pass away, and with her the entire species. In fact, for all the side Britain and Australia and other giants probably wouldn't have been that hard to hunt because they would have been taken totally by surprise by their two-legged aliens. Attacker. Very a single species had been improving and evolving, for race over 2 million years. They slowly earned their hunting skills and began going after large animals around 400,000 years ago. The big beasts of Africa and Asia learned to avoid humans. So when the new mega predator Homo sapien appeared on the Afro-Asian scene, the large animals already knew to keep their distance from creatures that looked like it. In contrast, the Australian giant had no time to learn to run away. Humans don't come across as particularly dangerous. They don't have long, sharp teeth or muscular, leafy body. So when Antipa turned the largest, most pirate ever toward the earth, set eyes for the first time on this great-looking ape, frail is easy to break. He gave it one glance and then went back to chewing leaves. These animals had no evil or fear of humankind, but before they could do so, they were conquered. Weak or unhealthy, easily getting broken heart. Actually, we come from this word. The second explanation is that by the time Sapien reached Australia, they had already mastered fire agriculture, faced with an alien and threatening environment. They deliberately burned vast areas of impossible thickets and dense forests to create open grasslands. We could attract more serious, easily hunted game and were better suited to their needs. They thereby completely changed the ecology of large parts of Australia within a few short millennia. One body of evidence supporting this view is the fossil plant records. Eucalyptus trees were rare in Australia 45,000 years ago, but the arrival of Homo sapien inaugurated a golden age of the species. Since eucalyptus are particularly resistant to fire, the spread far and wide, while other trees and shrubs disappear. Then eucalyptus. These changes in vegetation influencing the animals that are the planet. The carnivores that eat the vegetarian koala would subsist exclusively on a eucalyptus leaves, happily munch their way into few territories. Most other animals suffer greatly, meaning Australian food chains collapsed, driving the weakest linking to extinction. A third explanation agrees that hunting and fire agriculture play a significant role in the extinction. The emphasis that we can completely ignore the role of climate. The climate change that beset Australia about 45,000 years ago established the ecosystem and made it particularly vulnerable. Under normal circumstances, the system would probably have recuperated and happened many times previously. However, humans appeared on the scene in just this critical juncture and pushed the brutal ecosystem into the abyss. Connection. The combination of climate change and human hunting is particularly devastating for large animals since it attacks them from different angles. It is hard to find a good survival strategy that will work simultaneously against multiple threats. Without further evidence, there is no way of deciding between the three scenarios, but there are certainly good reason to believe that if Homo sapien had never gone down under, it would still be home to superior lions, diprotodons, and giant kangaroos. the end of sloth. The extinction of the Australian megafauna was probably the first significant mass Homo sapien life on our planet. It was followed by an even larger ecological disaster. This time in America, Homo sapien was the first and only human species to reach Western Hemisphere landmass, arriving about 16,000 years ago, that is, in around 14,000 BC. The first American barren food which they could do because at the time sea level was low enough that the land bridge connected northeastern Siberia with northwestern Alaska. Not that it was easy, the journey was an arduous one, perhaps harder than the sea passage to Australia. To make the crossing, Sapien first had to learn how to withstand the extreme Arctic conditions in northern Siberia, an area on which the sun never shines in winter and where temperatures can drop to minus 50 degrees Celsius. No previous human species had managed to penetrate places like northern Siberia. Even the co-adapted Neanderthals restricted themselves to relatively warmer region further south, but Homo sapien, whose body was adapted to living in the Africa savanna rather than in the land of Noah and ice, devised ingenious solution. Roaming bands of sapien foragers migrated into colder climates. They learned to make snowshoes and effective thermal clothing composed of layers of frozen skin, sewn together tightly with the help of needles. They developed the new weapons and sophisticated hunting techniques that enabled them to track and kill mammoths in the other big games of the far north. As their thermal clothing and hunting techniques improved, sapien had to venture deeper and deeper into the frozen region, and as they moved north, their close hunting strategies and other survival skill continued to improve. But why did they bother? Why band on south to Siberia by choice? Perhaps some bands were driven north by wars, demographic pressure of natural disaster. Other might have been lured north by more positive reasons, such as animal protein. The Arctic lands were full of large, juicy animals such as reindeer and mammoth. Every mammoth was a source of a vast quantity of meat, which, given the frosty temperature, could even be frozen for later use. Tasty fat, warm fur, and valuable ivory, as the finding from the Sinjit testified, mammoth hunter did not just survive in the frozen north, they thrived. As time passed, the band spread far and wide, pursuing mammoth, mastodons, rhinoceros, and reindeer. Around 14,000 years BC, about 14,000 BC, the chase took some of them from northeastern Siberia to Alaska. Of course, they didn't know where they were discovering a new world for mammoth and men alike. Alaska was a mere extension of Siberia. At first, glacier blocked the way from Alaska to the west of America, allowing no more than perhaps a few isolated pioneers to investigate the land further south. However, around 12,000 BC, global warming melted the ice and opened an easier passage, making use of the new corridor. People moved south in masses, spreading over the entire continent. Through originally adapted to hunting lost game in the Arctic, they soon adjusted to an amazing variety of climates and ecosystems. These descendants of the Siberians settled the thick forests of the eastern United States, the swamps of the Mississippi Delta, the desert of Mexico, and swimming jungle of Central America. Some made their homes in the river world of the Amazon basin, of the struck roots in Andean mountain valley of the open pampas of Argentina. And all this happened in the millenniums of two. By 10,000 BC, human already inhabited in the most southern point in America, the island of Tierra del Fuego and the continent of southern tip. The human bleached across this word. According to testify to incomparable ingenuity, and unsurpassed adaptability to Homo sapiens. No other animal had ever moved into such a huge variety of radically different habitats so quickly, everywhere using virtually the same genes. A way of fighting a whirling was a sudden, very powerful attack. Its German word make up of the word Blitz, meaning lightning, and Krieg at my word.
Blitzkrieg.
Blitzkrieg. Certain very determined or energetic attempt to do something.
Blitzkrieg.
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 Blitzkrieg. Blitzkrieg. Blitzkrieg. Blitzkrieg. Blitzkrieg. Blitzkrieg.
Blitzkrieg.
Blitzkrieg. Okay. Suddenly. No other animal had ever moved into such a variety of radically different habitats so quickly, everywhere using virtually the same genes. The setting America was hardly bloodless. It left behind a long trail of victims. American fauna 14,000 years ago was far richer than it is today. When the first American marched the south from Alaska to the plain of Canada and the western United States, they encountered mammoth and mastodons, rodents, the size of bears, herd of horses and camels, oversized lions, and dozens of lost species like the likes of which are completely unknown today. Among them, fearsome saber-toothed cats and giant ground sloth were weighed up to 8 tons. In a height of 6 meters, South Africa hosted an even more exotic neoplar mammal, reptiles and birds. America were a great laboratory of evolutionary experimentation, a place where animals and plants unknown in Africa and Asia had evolved and thrived. But no longer, within 2,000 years of the sapien arrival, most of the unique species were gone. According to current estimates, within that short interval, North America lost 34 out of its 47 genera of large mammals. South America lost 50 out of 60. The saber-toothed cats, after flourishing for more than 30 million years, disappeared, and so did the giant ground sloths, oversized lion, Native American horses, Native American camel, the giant rodents, and the mammoths. Thousands of species of smaller mammal, reptiles, birds, and even insects and parasites also became extinct. When the mammoth died, our species mammoth ticks followed them to oblivion. For decades, paleontologists and zooarchaeologists, people who search for and study animal remains, have been combining the plains and mountains of the American set of fossil bones of ants and camel and the Pacific giant ground sloth. I'm trying to think the solid will pass out the body of human animal through the bowel. Shit. And they found the sick, the treasure are carefully packed up and sent to laboratories where every bone and every corpse the technique name for fossil turds. Being meticulously studied mean, there's so much wonderful shit. Need time and again decentralized yield the same result. The freshest during polls and the more recent carnival date to the period when human flood America. That in between approximately 12,000 BC, only in one area have scientists discovered jungle dung bones. On several Caribbean islands, in particular, Hispaniola, they found purified ground sloth dating to about 5,000 BC. This is exactly the time when the first human managed to cross the Caribbean Sea and settle these two. Audio disconnect. No, let's connect it again. What happened? Oh, okay. Some scholars trying to estimate how much severe blame climate change would require them to posit that for some mysterious reason the climate in Caribbean islands remains steady for 7,000 years while the rest of the Western Hemisphere warmed. But in America, the downpour cannot be dodged. We are the culprits. There is no way around that truth, even if climate change adapts the human contribution were decisive. Okay, so that is too much for today. Bye bye. Hey.